Real people with real testimonies and real life, speaking on real and relevant truths. Today will be no other. Today's topic for the Thought Process Show is My Test is Now My Testimony. You can catch us on Facebook Live and later upload it on YouTube. Now I have three amazing guests on the stage with me tonight. I want to go ahead and introduce them, and we're going to jump right into it. But really quick, if you're watching this live feed, I need you to go to our YouTube page, our very new YouTube page, and subscribe to Divine Connections. This will be uploaded with our commercials later on this week, and you'll be able to watch it over and over again. And be sure to share. Next to me, we have amazing Shantae Gamble of BBU Magazine. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, honey, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. Right next to her, I have Ms. Lindsay Bivens. You just seen her on Divine Connections All Gospel radio station this past Sunday. She is with My Message Matters. Go ahead and tell everyone, hey.
Hello, everyone.
All righty, and we
Glad
all
to be here.
awesome, and we all know Anthony Thomas. He also had the pleasure, and I had the pleasure of interviewing him on 953 Jams as well. What's going on, Anthony Thomas of Kingdom Talk?
Hey, we're just blessed to be here.
Oh, and I'm so blessed to have all of you. Thank you so much for making sure that you was able to come, and showing up here on today is definitely a pleasure. So we're gonna go ahead and jump right into it. Shantae.
Yes, ma'am.
I had the pleasure of being introduced to actually, I have to say that Pastor Gary was the reason I met all three, LaShonda Gary, all three of these individuals. Build That Success Conference. I ran into Mr. Anthony Thomas, and crazy thing is, we even know a good friend of mine, Phyllis. Shout out to Phyllis with that. And then I had the pleasure of being introduced to these beautiful women. But they do have a testimony. We're going to go ahead and jump right into it. Tell us a little bit about yourself, Ms. Gamble.
Well, I'm the CEO of Women Empowering Change. It's a nonprofit organization. I got into being an entrepreneur at a very early age. You know, I hadn't really defined that I was going to end up wanting to be a legitimate businesswoman. I started making handmade jewelry, doing vendor events as a vendor, shows, festivals, things like that. And I had an epiphany. I said, well, you know what? I'm out here, I have all this product, and I'm paying all of this money to participate, which wasn't a bad thing because I needed a platform. But then I said, well, you know what? I would like to be on the other side of this. So how can I provide a platform for small business owners that maybe cannot afford $1,000 booth, right? So I said, well, what can I do? Who do I know? What connections do I have? And at the time, I had built a pretty good following doing jewelry on Facebook. Back then, you could sell something on Facebook without promoting it.
Right.
But thank you, Facebook, because we're on Facebook Live, right? But, you know, I had humble beginnings. You know, up all night, I tell everybody, my first real business forward step was going to Hobby Lobby, buying a pack of beads and 2 tools. And it eventually evolved, it snowballed into starting my own company, having a platform where small business owners can come out, get a vendor booth, and I bring people to them. And then it turned into, well, who can we promote? Who can we spotlight? So we started doing vendor spotlights. I would look for professionals in the city of Houston and just showcase what they're doing, because there are so many great entrepreneurs here. And we all need that little bit of spotlight, right? Because just because you aren't big and famous does not mean you aren't doing great things, and it doesn't mean that you don't have a big reach either. Because you never know, there are a lot of people that don't like posts, but I will run into them later and say, you know what, you really encouraged me. I'm like, we friends?
Right.
Where do you be at? You know, but that's not the important part. I don't care if people like it or not. I don't care if I get 1,000 likes, because 1,000 people may see it, 1,000 people may be moved by it. So that's how I kind of got started, and then it just moved. It just kept evolving. And I said, well, what can we do? We had a breast cancer awareness program campaign that we started, and we supported different nonprofits. Gave about $10,000 away through the years.
And where was I at?
Right? Was out there working. We was working. And then we just started doing events, and it grew. We had a ladies group. We started doing meetups. So I've just kind of gone through the ups and downs of being a businesswoman. Through then, I've conquered some of my own fears, writing books. I thought, what if nobody reads it? Right? And I tell everybody, I'm going to sum it up real quick. I had a book, took me 7 years to write, and I was so proud. My most proud moment was sending it to get copywritten and getting that letter back, and I framed it. But that's not a book, right? And I would walk by that frame all the time, and I would just have this nagging feeling like I was not finished with what I was called to do. And I tell everybody all the time, if you have a pressing, usually that's purpose kind of tapping you on the shoulder like, you're not done yet. There are more things you need to do. And I took that next step because I told you I felt like, well, what if nobody reads it, right? Took it, published it, and from there, I gained a new self-confidence that even if one person read it, that was good enough for me. I think sometimes we also get lost in numbers, right? And we miss the reach, right? We miss that part, and that's the biggest part. So that's just how it started. It started with 1 pack of beads, 2 tools, and now we have a nonprofit. We have a magazine. We spotlight successful entrepreneurs, women and men, all in the city. So it's really great. It's been a journey.
Amazing. I bet it has. So I got some questions. I'm gonna wait till later on because I'm gonna ask 1,001,000.
I got answers.
Questions. Is that the right number? 1,001,000? Maybe. Okay. Y'all have to excuse me. I'm a little silly sometimes, but yeah, I know I got a part that I get to ask those questions. Miss Lindsay.
Yes.
Now I know a lot of people that may be watching have heard your testimony, but this is the time where I really want you to, really tell your testimony and your test and what happened with you and how you are where you are at now.
Okay, so this is me being silly. I have 101 of those testimonies, but the short version of my story that connects to what I'm doing now is back in 2012, I wrote a book. So I'm listening to your story, and they align in many places. I was coming out of an abusive relationship. I was, badly abused in a relationship with an older gentleman at the time. I was very young, 22 years old. And when I got out of that relationship, I began to write, just journal down my thoughts, document how I was feeling. And I healed myself through journaling. After time, I began to look at those journal entries, and they spoke to me. It was like poetry. I would rhyme without trying to rhyme. And many of those things, they began to minister to me all over again. And that's when I got that nagging feeling that I need to do something with it. So I proceeded. I published my first book. I hired a company again in 2012. Is when that book was finally birthed. The abusive relationship, I got out of that back in 2003. So I want to just, the time frame, when you say 7 years, it was about that time, It took me many years to jot down those poems, and then I started feeling, responsibility to publish. Like, people need this. Somebody needs to hear my story. And after coming out of the publishing experience, I felt shortchanged because I didn't quite get what I wanted. It didn't quite do what I wanted. And that there was another nagging feeling. I need to do something about it.
Right.
I was trying to hold that. This is like a repeat for me, and that is when I run into some type of difficulty, I feel a responsibility of changing the world for everybody. I'm that girl. So when I went through the publishing process and didn't like it, I'm like, okay, other people are doing this and feeling the same thing. What can I do to change it for all of us? And I launched my first business, which is a publishing support company, The Author's Pen. I launched that business in 2012, and for several years, nothing happened. Nothing. When I say nothing, it was just dead and dry and crazy to say I was in business. Around 2015, I said, okay, God, I thought you told me to start this business. It's not doing nothing. I'm not making no money, just I'm going through the motions but not really making progress with anything. And it was one of the most difficult decisions I had to make in my life. When I decided to dissolve the business, it felt like, part of me was dying. It was an interesting time because I came face to face with what I thought God said to do, and it didn't work out, and I had to bury it. Within a couple of weeks of making the decision to dissolve the business, a few weeks later, I was really in prayer and consecration with the Lord for direction. And within those couple of weeks, I got my first client. I went into 2016 with a client and no business. It sent me right back to, I was living in Jacksonville, Florida. That's where I'm originally from. I had to go to the state of Florida to now start another business, go to the bank, open another business account, and that was the beginning of a new journey for me with the business. Like, it's interesting how God will allow you to fail so terribly and then resurrect that thing, So here I am, 2016. I had been in the mortgage industry. I have a small family. I had just had 2 new babies. Coming into 2016, my baby was 2 months old, maybe. Yeah, and I said to my husband, I'm ready to quit my job. God is calling me out of corporate America. There's more for me to do. And for the first time in the years that we had been married, maybe about 10, 12 years at the time, my husband said, okay. He said, okay. I said, okay? You sure?
Yeah.
Like, brother, I came to you like 100 times about this, and you said no. But my husband, something shifted in my husband in that time, and that was, I think he began to see something in me that he hadn't seen before. And to fast forward, in 2016, I made a decision to come off of corporate America, like I mentioned, and before I could walk away, I was laid off for the 3rd time. Laid off for the 3rd time, and within a few months of being laid off that 3rd time, my husband came and said, we're moving to Houston. That's how I got here. Yes, so it's an interesting twist and turn. Sometimes life feels like that. But since being
life
here,
always feels like
yes,
that for some reason.
It feels crazy at times. In the last 2 years, so I've been here 2 years. In these 2 years, I went from 1 client to 2 to 4 to 12. My business has grown exponentially over just 2 years' time. I have traveled internationally. I've gone to publishing conferences in Germany and London to learn my trade, making a serious commitment about leading in my industry, even though I was the only black face in the room in Germany. Yes, and my message matters. So while going through the dry seasons with starting a business and nothing happening, my message matters. The conference that we're doing right now was birthed in that season when I know God called me to create enterprise around what I'm great at, and nothing was happening. And I know other people are feeling the same thing.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Well, I already told you how I was like, Lord, help me, Jesus.
Yeah.
Help me. I don't know what's happening right now, but when you take that step out on faith, you got to have faith. And that's one of the hardest things to do. My pastor always say your patience and your faith must be tied together. And those are the 2 most difficult things that I found was to have patience and wait on God and have faith that he's actually going to do it, right?
Her message, I'm sorry, I know I'm out of place. You are a blessing. And sitting here listening to you, it was a mirror for me. And it just confirms that a lot of times you think you're alone in certain things. You think, oh my God, I'm the only one. And you're not. It just feels that way. Because maybe someone not within your immediate reach is dealing with that same thing. But you just explained the other parts. I didn't share yet. Right? I'm just listening to you and I'm just wowed. And I'm like, thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Mr. Anthony Thomas of Kingdom Talk.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to hear your testimony because I know you have one.
Well, I'm going to copy all 3 of them. I got a lot of them.
More than 101, right?
Well, 1,000,001,000.
Oh, you taking my number. Right out my number.
So a little bit about me, and I'll just try to skip through some of it. I was born in Houston, Texas. My mom had me when she was 14 years old. Some people know this already, and she just had a hard time, trying to raise me at a very, very young age. And just despite everything we went through in life and everything that, from in and out of shelters, she was trying her best. Being homeless, we slept in cars and all kind of things like that. And it just, everything I went through just growing up just kind of made me and built me for the journey that I'm facing now and everything that I went through. I later went through the military to try to get out of, a bad neighborhood, a bad environment, just try to better myself. I was always seeing, I was very young, seeing people getting killed and people getting shot and just all kind of violence. And I just come from a very, very poverty mindset and environment. And I went to the military, deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and just went through a lot of different things in the military. And when I came out of the military, I knew God before I went in, and I thought that, man, maybe since I wasn't obedient to God and just wasn't operating, like He wanted me to, I thought He forgot about me. And I was married at the time with my wife, and we had two boys at the time, and she was pregnant with my third son, and I was really just at a point where we had money at first, and I was seeking God, but I wasn't hearing anything. I was trying to find God. He wouldn't respond to me, and I was just begging Him, God, like, please just, kill me. And this is a dangerous place to be in when you don't really understand kingdom and you don't understand purpose. So I was asking God to let me die so that my kids can go to heaven. I didn't understand about being redeemed. I didn't understand about once you called, you always called. I didn't understand about purpose and things like that. So at that time, I was just lost and just knew that I needed God, and I was trying different religions and growing my hair all crazy, and I had a lot going on. Had all kind of people coming to the house. I was just on some stuff, man, and just searching for God. And then I finally found God, but it took for Him to break me down to absolutely nothing. I think we had like $17 of food stamps. So I went from having a lot of money and things like that, and money I had saved up from the military, to maybe like $17 of food stamps and some WIC. And my wife is pregnant. And I'm knowing I can get money in the streets. But I'm praying to God and just asking Him to speak to me. And I'm asking for a change in my atmosphere, change in my whole environment. Because my wife is crying, she's pregnant, no lights, no water. Just pawning everything that I can, just went really, really, really low. And I cried out, God, like, come on. Because a lot of the stuff was falling in my lap, but I didn't want to move no work. I didn't want to be that person. I got kids to live for, and I'm trying to be a different person. Because, if you're living in the streets, you got to be all the way in the streets to survive. That's right. And I felt God tugging on me, and I would hear things that my mom said to me back in the day, or my grandma, and they taught me trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not to thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy path. And sometimes scriptures don't really make sense when you first learn them, but when you have to apply them, that's when it starts moving. And so I started applying that, and I got into church. And I was in a very blessed place and stuff, and God was dealing with me, and I was seeing things that we went from pawning things and stuff like that to decreeing like I would never pawn again. And because that was a generational curse, that everybody in my family was pawning everything. And you pawn stuff, then you go and you try to get it back, and then you go back and pawn it again, and go back and get it out. And I'm like, God, like, come on, man. Like, I'm at church, I'm cleaning the church, I'm here all the time, you know what I'm saying? Something got to shake. If something don't shake, then I'm going to act up and I'm going to go back to the streets. And I know a lot of people was thinking like that. They come into the church, they come into the church and they start trying to do right, but then they think that God's not moving fast enough for them. And sometimes it's all a process. And it's God fixing your mind and building you up. And God was showing me, like, man, everything you've been through and you crying about this, like, man, you built for all of this. So let's go, like, lock in. So I just stayed locked in with Him, and things just started turning around for me as I started growing spiritually and then my finances started coming around and stuff. And the more I got, the more I poured back into the kingdom. And so one of the biggest things that I've learned, so now I was fast forward a few years and I'm going to church and I'm hearing God in a different way. And I'm in the church on a daily basis, all the time. I'm at every service and I'm hearing God and I'm thinking that I'm doing what he wants me to do, but I felt that inner pressing, like you said, something was pushing on me because I just had a desire. I'm like, I was going to different services and stuff, and sometimes you see that we miss our opportunity to minister to hurting people, or people come in with tattoos on their faces and stuff like that, and we kind of shun from them, but yet we want them. That's what we're supposed to be reaching, right? Jesus' ministry, Jesus was outside the four walls. You know, Jesus was healing people. Jesus was sitting with the lady at the well, with the prostitutes and stuff like that. That's where he's at. And so I always had a passion to go back and reach those people. And some of my homeboys would hit me up and I would go like minister to them behind the scenes and like real life stuff, like people trying to leave gang affiliations and stuff like that, or people sitting with the gun. They see what I was doing and they want to change, but they thinking like, man, what should I do? You know, and I just had a passion for going back and reaching out to them. And I felt that pressing. And then the one thing I learned that you got to hear God for yourself. You don't always have to sit. People be sitting in church for 30 years and not purposeful.
That is so true. That is so true.
That's a dangerous place to be in. And I was thinking, like, when I came up in Sunnyside and South Park, that we really didn't. You walk around with no purpose. And you know, they say the Bible say without a vision, the people perish. But without purpose, you can apply that too. It kind of go hand in hand. The people will perish, and we really didn't have anything to live for. Me and my cousin, our dream when we thought we was making it was we was gonna be able to buy us a wing dinner from Timmy Chan, our own individual wing dinner, and that's how poor we were. And that's just we just used to put our money together and split it and stuff. But we just said, when I get some money, this is what I'm gonna do. And that's not really understanding kingdom. That's not understanding who you are. And when I started developing I had a relationship with God. Well, I knew God, but I really didn't have a great relationship with him because he was trying to show me kingdom. And when I started understanding kingdom, that's when I got all the way away from religion. Like, religion can't touch me now. Like, for real. I'm so free now because when I start understanding who I am and who I belong to and what's mine, and I'm a royal priesthood, and we come from a chosen generation, and we've been set apart, and I'm meant to reign in royalty and all kind of things like that. And then I start understanding that, listen, man, like, God is my father. God is everything that I need. So, you know, I told somebody this back in the day, you know, I used to go get somebody. Like, if I felt I had an issue, or if I got jumped, or if I had problems that was bigger than me, I'll be right back. Let me go get somebody. But now, for the devil, I got somebody that's with me all the time. Like, listen, man, like, you are no match for me. Like, I understand that I can decree and declare. I can lock your mind up right now because I'm kingdom. I don't even have to fight you, dude. You know what I'm saying? And so it's a lot of people that I just have a passion for teaching kingdom principles to and invoking change. That's where we at. We outside these walls. When God started showing me that, I started understanding the kingdom and moving forward in it, in kingdom principles and stuff. And God, I went through a lot of things, a lot of hurts, a lot of letdowns and stuff. And God had me silent for a season. But in my silent season, God was doing something within me. He was stirring some things up. And God told me, if you don't start, he made me actually go live and start doing Facebook live videos and things like that. And that ain't me. I prefer to just be in the background. Let me clean up. Let me fix whatever you want me to do, you know. And then God said, no, go forward. And then since I've been going forward, so many people have been feeling some of the same things that I was feeling. And it's a lot more to it. And we've been ministering to people. We've been binding up suicide. Like, we've been, like, real life ministry been going on. And that's where we at with Kingdom Talk, because so as a man thinketh, so is he. And we've really been trying to invoke change in, like, how you even speak. Like, yeah, the bills are piling up, but I'm going to speak prosperity. Yeah, my family's acting up, I'm going to speak peace. I'm going to speak generational blessings. And just, you know, I don't want to turn up too much right now, but it's just that's where we at with Kingdom Talk. And even when just going forward in this, God showed me that even in Genesis, when God brought, and it's so much power in the tongue, and we use so many different verses about it. But let's go back to Genesis, because in the beginning, God brought everything to Adam, and he told Adam, whatever you name these animals and stuff, that's what it's going to be. Think about it. That's power right there. Right. So I'm using them same principles that, God, whatever you bring before me or whatever I see, that's what it's going to be. So I'm going to speak life into you. I'm going to speak prosperity into you. I'm going to use the same principles and the same power that God gave Adam in Genesis, and I'm going to apply it to my daily walk and my daily life to empower others so they can see that God is not through with them and they will have purpose. So that's what Kingdom Talk is.
I know that's right. I heard that. Man. Come on now.
Sorry. Hope I ain't go too long.
No. You did just fine. That's amazing. That's amazing. And especially when I don't really get too many men that come up and be willing and open to get a testimony and say, this is what I was doing. I was in the streets. I was doing this, but you don't have to stay there.
Right. Right.
You know, and when we look at that, that's powerful by itself.
Yes, it is.
You know, because it's not enough. You'll see women up here all the time. We're willing to, we understand that our test is now a testimony, and we understand when God says move. We may have sometimes when we don't want to. We may have some embarrassment where we don't want to open up, but we'll eventually do it. And it's more women than men that'll come up and say, hey, I've been through abusive relationships. I've went through this. I've went through molestation. I went through these different things. And if I can come out of it, so can you. But when we look at it, we don't understand the process. And I really like to always talk about the process and getting through. And that's something that I really want to touch on now. And I wanted to talk to you first, only because I know a lot of their story already. But I wanted to hear about your process, because you said a lot about what you're doing now. But I want to hear about how you got there. I want to hear about Shantae before.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, I was just like when I said our stories mirrored, they did. When I was writing my book, I was pregnant my senior year, right? So I almost made it out of college without a baby, right? Almost. And I just felt like I disappointed my parents. You know, I was never a kid that they really had to really worry about, right? And I was that kid that, you know, went to private school and, you know, parents took really good care. So, you know, then they label you, oh, you don't have any problems. Life is probably really well for you. But there were a lot of things that I had to learn on my own growing up in the developmental process when kids really need to be nurtured. So I feel like I was very mature. But, you know, fast forward into college, you know, I felt a little free. You know, I wasn't under my parents' thumb. Right. You know, I didn't have to fit a certain image of what people thought I was, right? Almost made it. Didn't make it.
Almost.
I was so close that when I graduated, walked across the stage, I gave birth like a couple of weeks later. Wow. Right. My process, but during then, when I got pregnant, I got sick, really, really, really sick. And I was just telling somebody about this today. I checked myself in because I was going back and forth, and I was really nervous, first kid. And they kept saying, oh, it's morning sickness. And the last time I checked myself in, I said, I can't eat, I'm throwing up, I'm wasting away. I was thin, I was bones and pregnant. That's kind of backwards. Right. Usually you're like, oh my God, I feel like a whale, right? You know? And it turns out I had to get my gallbladder removed while I was pregnant. But that was a big turning point because up until then, remember I said I was freer, right? So I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really go to college to learn like everybody else. But that's what people thought because I went to private school, right? And I had to fit this image. I just went so I could relax a little bit, right? And exactly, and my parents still didn't have to worry too much about me. And that during that process, it's like the light switch went on. Now, I had been barely passing up until then, barely passing. High school, I was on honor roll, college, barely there, right? Getting letters and you're nervous. And the light switch went on. I say, you know what? I'm preparing my future for not just myself anymore. And I had to take 2 semesters in 1 semester. I had a professor, he was like my dad, on-campus dad. And I told him, I said, I don't want to quit college because I'm right here at the end. What do? I have to go have this surgery. I'm very ill. I wasn't showing up. I was calling my professors in the middle of gagging. So they were like, just stay at home. Right? So he said, well, this is what you do. And he gave me a strategy. So when I came back after my surgery in college, they give you like a month. I had my surgery and I had time to heal. And it took a little longer because I was pregnant and I had stomach, surgery. So when I came back, I had to take a whole year in one semester because in first half, I had to pretty much scrap. He told me just scrap it. He told me what to do. Right. Exactly. Take the classes again. And some of the teachers I had to go to personally and ask. And I did it. I did a whole year in one semester. Wow. And I worked, and I felt so empowered when I left. Wow. And that's when the book started coming. And it was poetry. So that's why I say we are mirrors here. It's amazing. God will put you in the presence of people so that you can see that, hey, I've been with you the whole time. And I would pull over off the freeway, I'd write on a receipt, anything I had. And I took that time to heal because then my relationship fell apart and I'm thinking, oh, we were going to get married. I'm thinking the, white picket fences, and it just did not happen. And it was okay. But I had to heal during that. I had to heal. I thought I'd failed myself. I thought I'd failed my parents. I was scared. I did have a degree, but then nobody would hire me. So I spent almost 2 years looking for jobs. Looking for jobs with a degree. And that was a very hard time. So that was kind of the first stretch. And then, things picked up. I was able to get a job. God blessed me. I was telling the same girl earlier today, when I did start teaching, they gave me all the time before. When I was subbing, they gave me those years. So he put me ahead. So sometimes you feel like you're so far behind. And then when he accelerates you, my first year teaching should have been 1 year. Right. 1 year. I had 3 my first year. 3 years that they given me back pay for. And then it just blossomed from there. I gained the confidence to publish the book. And then I moved forward. And then I had the business. And then I got to the point where I got married, I had a family, and I was doing more in the community and busy and trying to be a mom, a wife, a person. Because I think as women, like you said, we're always ready. Always. Right? We're like, yes. Right. Hardly ever do we say no. Right. But I had to learn in between there to say no. And unfortunately, I experienced divorce. And we were talking earlier, and she asked me, when was your last event? And we were trying to figure it out because I had to take a break. He said, sit down. Right? Sometimes we're always trying to be there for someone else when we really, I had an epiphany. I said, you know what? I'm always out there for the community. But now I have 2 boys now, right? We're a community in this house. And just as much effort I put into empowering and enriching them outside of my home, I now need to do that for us. And like you said, I had to be broken all the way down. Now you would think you got all the way up here, he would keep you moving forward. And sometimes when we feel like we have to sit down for a little bit, that we're not going to get a chance to get back in the game. And I wrote a post and I said, even the best players sit out. They need to sit out. They need to rest. Because when you get back in the game, you're going to win. But you need that rest. You can't keep going and going and going and going. And sometimes you can be busy and not be productive. Sometimes you can, and when you said, I felt the same thing you said when I thought you told me to do this. You told me to do this. Now all of a sudden you're telling me not to do it? And I would watch. I just watched. The hardest thing is to birth something, right? As hard as labor. Just like physical labor, you don't know, but you kind of know. You know. Okay? Natural birth, I experienced it. Worst thing ever. I was like, I cannot do this. I don't know how else this baby gonna get here, but I can't do it this way.
I know that's true.
But the hardest thing is to watch it die. Slowly. When you can see it just fall apart. So I had to watch it sitting still. He's like, don't touch it. You know, you go to church and your mom say,
Yeah.
That was God and that was me. And that's kind of where I've been for the last 2.5 years. And I went to the conference, Dream Build Success.
Yes, Lord.
Yeah, this last, and I'm up there.
Amazing
Oh my God,
Wow.
I'm up there speaking, and I'm thinking to myself, you know, listening to everybody's testimonies. A lot of times people think if you're up here or if you're speaking, then you have life all figured out. You do not.
Definitely don't.
Right? You don't. You're learning. You're teaching people what you're learning.
Yeah.
Sitting in the audience of the same conference, I felt like it is time again.
That's right.
So now I'm back, and I said, you know, I'm walking. I said, okay, Lord. I said, look, okay. I thought you told me to do the last thing. Only 2 people showed up. Now you telling me to do it again. I need more than 2, right?
Come on now. Tell the truth.
I said, you know what? Just like when you said, you have to speak it. You have to tell the Lord what you need. I said, God, this is what I need. I need this, because when I did my business the first time, all you needed was just to post on Facebook and you get people be there. You know, people are there. Usually the people who were on radio had the money. It was tens and thousands of dollars, you know, 10,000, 5,000 to be on the radio. Now you have more opportunities to be on radio. So I said, well, this is a whole new game for me now. I said, well, now I need to be on the radio. I need to be on TV. And as soon as I said that and I got back home, I got a call. I got an inbox.
Yeah.
And Miss Gary called me the next week and said, hey, I got an idea. What you think about it? I was like, please, tag me, tag her. What do I do? I need to send her my name, my number, my phone number, my email address. What you need?
I'm telling you.
Thank you.
Divine connections.
Come on, say that.
Divine connection.
And they said it. She said it at that Building Success Conference, and I wish it was there. Everybody that you needed was in the room.
In the room.
In the room.
In the room.
Because you never know the reason you meet that one person.
Yes.
You know, you go through everything that you're going through, not understanding where God is taking you to. That process is the hardest part. Well, I thought you told me to do this.
Yes.
You know, I thought you, like I was telling you, I believe, my first conference, I thought you told me to do this.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
15, 20 people in here. Well, what is this? It's not what I was looking for, you know, and then you get the second conference and, well, this not it either. Wait, what's going on? You know, I thought I'm supposed to be touching lives, and I can see all the way to the back of the wall, and I'm peeking out the door. You know, nobody's in there. What's happening? And the majority of the people that's here, I know.
Yes.
You know, and that's like I've been advertising. I've been going to churches. I've been doing this, and then he said, "You just keep going.
You do.
And keep pressing.
Keep doing.
You know, and sometimes you're right. He do sit you down, and he do have to break you down because he have to remind you that it's not about you.
Amen.
That was
It's
the
not
whole
about
key.
you, and that was my issue. This is what I want.
That's the key.
But when he said, "Put it in my hands," that last one had over 100 women registered, and how many people I did not know.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? And we have some people in the audience that was there, and I mean, it was just something, and I was so nervous. Because I was like, I'm not ready for this. But this is what you've been asking for, and this what you've been praying for. And you complained the first 2 times that it wasn't what you wanted. But now that I'm almost, and that's not even the crazy thing, he say, wait till the next one.
Come on.
Wait till the next one, because you was worried about the first and the second one. I showed you just a little bit. He says, the Bible says he wants you to have life more abundantly, right? So why are you afraid of what I'm giving you? I need to make sure that you can handle where you are before I can move you to where you're going. And that was something that I didn't understand. Right now, I really want to thank y'all so far in this. We're really going to dive back into it, but we're going to take a quick break. Facebook, Periscope, Instagram, we will be right back with you. I hope you are enjoying the Thought Process Show right now. Again, I'm your host, Keisha M. Lee, Shantae Gamble, Lindsay Bivens, and Anthony Thomas. We will be right back.